What's up, nerds? This is the Align in the Stars podcast. I'm Jordan.
I'm Matt.
And we're here to talk to you today about a little bit of Star Wars and a little bit of Star Trek. It's what we do.
Yeah.
So we're sitting down. This is our, third recording at your place?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think we'll probably record here one more time because the idea is long, short. I just got my own apartment.
Yeah.
5 minutes from here.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You guys may not know, but I have a ridiculous commute. I think I mentioned it a couple of times. Yeah, because I'm able to listen to, I've listened to Dooku so far, and that's about it. But yeah, so I'm my commute's literally going from 52 minutes on a good day to 15 minutes. And so I'm really excited. Going to be super close. But the idea is, Matt's going to have a roommate, and we're going to be doing most of the recording at my place. And so we probably have one more recording here, but it is pretty cool. Like from recording at the store to recording here to eventually when we get to my apartment, we're going to have a little bit more of like a permanent recording set up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Eventually you might see our faces for those of us don't know what we actually look like. So yeah, that's kind of the cool thing that we got going on that front. I'll kind of let you lead off. We usually do the what we've been doing, what we've been watching sort of thing. And so I've started out talking. What you been doing?
So as far as Star Trek and Star Wars goes, not a whole bunch. I did finish my second watch of Picard.
Oh yeah.
So my question is related to that.
Awesome. I'm excited about that. Okay.
Dude, again, the last bits of that episode still hit hard, man.
They really do.
And having that separation after, not watching Insurrection and the movies that directly tie into that. It still has that emotional impact. It's like,
well, and what's funny though, hopefully I'm not answering a question or anything like that, but what's interesting about Picard is at this point it's been out I think the last episode came out a year ago, actually, now that I think about it. So, spoiler alert, Picard dies, right? And that moment, when he trails off mid-sentence is very Kirk. Very Kirk, and Generations sort of thing, it was fun. And he stares off into space and then that's it, right? But, what you're talking about is Data.
Yeah.
And, I can tell you definitively what my favorite Star Wars character is. I will really struggle with Star Trek. I really will. And I think Data is at least top 5.
Yeah, easily.
And it was a gut punch. You were not expecting that. You saw the Golem happening, right? Yeah. They telegraphed it the episode before.
Yeah.
Here's this blank slate. We know Picard's going to die. That's the whole season was building towards this, right? And then, it's oh, cool, he's an android now. Cool. But then when he wakes up and he sits across from Data.
Yeah.
Not B4.
Yeah.
Not some construct. Data.
Yeah, not some de-aged version of Data.
It's him.
It's Data.
And the joy that Picard first experiences is... You don't see that often out of him.
Yeah.
You really don't. And so that moment, when I think my favorite part in that entire last episode is when Data is laying on the couch, he's aging up, and then the image of Picard appears in his red uniform, and he grabs his hand.
That's the part that broke me.
I have chills.
That's the part that broke me. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
Blue Sky, such a great song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, it's things. And then Picard shows him in his red uniform. I go, fuck.
Yeah, dude.
Man.
I know. And honestly, a lot of the critics say that Picard was rushed. And I've watched it probably 5 or 6 times now, actually, which is kind of, it's like Rebels. I actually haven't been watching Rebels lately, by the way. But it's a lot like it in that way. Like it was in the beginning. I needed to absorb as much of it as could because, I mean, Picard was, you know, the Next Gen was part of like my formative years. And that moment, though, with Data and him, like, it just grabbed you.
Yeah, it's seriously just that. I mean, it's all an elaborate simulation.
Yeah.
And as Data is going, he has his captain show up.
Yeah.
By his side.
Yeah.
To hold him.
Not even not Admiral Picard.
No, Captain.
Captain Picard. Yeah. His captain.
Yeah.
The captain he got to sacrifice himself, and when he tells him that all I've ever wanted was to feel alive. Right. And this is the only way. And when he tells him that, it's just like, dude. And he lets him go.
He also asks Picard, you know, do you regret putting your life to save essentially, you know, all those sins? And he goes, no. He goes, then why would you expect me to feel the same?
Yeah.
About sacrificing my life for yours?
You know,
yeah.
And what's amazing about that, and I'm just thinking about this now, that lesson there is actually a really important lesson, right? It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Picard had spent 20 plus years wallowing in worry about, you know, Data sacrifice himself. This supreme being, right? This one once in a galaxy sort of thing. Like obviously with the synths, they're all kind of based off of Data, and you can look at Soji being a human form synth,
right?
Even Picard being a human form synth now at this point. Like basically, you know, the long of it is, you know, Picard was never able to put himself in Data's shoes, right? All Data ever wanted was to be human. That was it. There was nothing else. It was like his core programming was to find whatever way. Him sacrificing himself for the person that he loved the most, that's the most human thing you can do.
Yeah.
And for Picard to finally see that at the end was pretty amazing. And you feel when he's on the bridge of the La Sirena at the end, you feel the Picard that you felt in the show.
Yeah.
Light. Very light, you know, like he's not at all like worried about the world at this point. I'm really fascinated for season 2.
I am too.
Yeah.
I also in rewatching it, I remember feeling like the ending was kind of either rushed or very cliched.
Yes.
And
very Next Gen.
It like, okay, yes, it is, but didn't bother me as much the second time.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me as much the second. And honestly, like I said, I've watched it 5 times now. Every time it actually makes me feel better because just once again, you got the crew standing on the bridge and they're all doing their thing, and you know, Picard says engage or make it so or whatever. You know, at the end, it's just like any other fucking episode of Star Trek: The Next Gen. You know, but it bothered me the first time.
Yeah.
It definitely did. I was just like, do you have to rush this? Please don't. You don't have the constraints. That's what I don't understand why some of these episodes felt a little rushed is you got time. Like you don't have to worry about commercials. 50-minute episode, 60-minute episode. Okay.
But for the most part, they're all well paced.
Yeah. So, it was the last couple.
It was just like, it was trope after trope. I'm like, I can clearly see where this is going, but now that I've seen the end, I don't have. I worry less about the betrayal of
Soji doing
shiny Soji.
Exactly. What was her name? Anyway, what was her name?
And it's not Butterfly. It's not Flower. And Flower was. And her sister was
Jana. Jana was her sister.
I forget.
Anyway, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the thing that I would say is, trope after trope, I definitely agree. The Data thing was the curveball.
Yeah, that was the 1-2 punch. Just like you have you have Picard's death. Like, okay, we saw it coming. Still stung because they did it really well. I felt really bad for
Raffi
and Raffi and Elnor were the two where I'm like
that moment where she moms him.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. See,
when Elnor breaks down, I'm like, we have a Romulan cry.
Yeah. It's like, dude. So in all the pacing of that, like the episode is interesting. Like it was so rushed and so rushed and so rushed, and then he dies. Mm-hmm. And then it stops.
And everything
it just slows down.
I really liked.
The moment with Seven and Rios, where they're drinking that alcohol, and I'm using heavy quotes here.
Yeah.
That moment, she also points out something to Rios there too. Like it's so that the writing in that episode was rushed, but so well done. Mm-hmm. She's like, what could you have done about it? He's like, I promised myself I was never going to fall in love with some self-righteous Starfleet captain.
Who then goes himself killed.
Exactly. And she's like, well, what could you have done about it?
It's just
Nothing. And you see him in that moment come to peace. Like that writing in that episode was so good. It just, it needed to have that brevity that you had in the last 20 minutes of the episode. Throughout the first episode and a half of those two-parters, I mean, because once they hit Nepenthe, it was just like, okay, we're starting to speed up here, and it's like, okay, like we need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit, and they did it. And once again, that curveball with Data at the end was just not.
I did not see that. No, coming.
Like they literally
they blindside you.
Yeah, and they finished Nemesis 20 years later.
Yeah.
Like they finished the story
and
did it really, really well. And it gives me hope. Like Akiva Goldsman, who is the showrunner for Picard, has come out. He said, we saw the mistakes that we made in Picard season 1, and just know that we have made none of those mistakes this time around.
Hell yeah, cool.
And I'm thankful for that. I'm really thankful for, the people who are running Star Trek, is they're doing it for the fans and listening to their fans. Star Wars, take note. Please take note, Star Wars. Yeah. Like they're listening to their fans and saying, okay, we recognize that. We're still going to do our own thing, but we're going to correct those issues.
Yeah.
And so,
I will say Star Wars fans are a bit more rabid.
Yeah.
Like you have sections in Star Trek, and you have passionate people, but generally there is a consensus sort of on, or at least there's a half and half split on what people want to see.
Right.
And there is a middle ground that can be found.
Right.
Real quick, I also want to mention two things. One, the Borg cube entering atmosphere is still one of the fucking coolest things that I have ever seen.
I know. I really wish they would have showed the impact.
Like, holy shit. Like, you start the flames start coming up, and then it enters the atmosphere and just boom.
Yeah, dude.
Across.
Yeah.
And watching that in 4K was fucking amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Two, and something I completely missed because my eyes were too full of tears the first time. Raffi and Seven are an item.
Yeah.
That completely passed me because my eyes were still too full of tears.
Yeah.
To see that. But
and once again, cool.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's like 7 and 9 sexuality was never really. I mean, they kind of touched a little bit with Chakotay at the end, but that was like the last episode's sort of weirdness. I like the fact that Seven and Raffi are together. I think they make sense.
Yeah.
I really do.
I think that's very cool.
Yeah.
And I want to see that developed more.
Me too. I want to see, honestly, we need more Jeri Ryan in season 2.
Yes.
We need a 7 of 9 show.
We need more 7 of 9.
We need more 7 of 9. Like, she was so good in Picard. Like, the character made sense. You could tell that she loved Seven.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell that it was not hard for her to go back. Yeah. I just keep thinking about that moment, where she's saying goodbye to Picard, and she's like, save the galaxy or save the universe or whatever. And he goes, that's on you now.
Yeah.
And the look that she has, it's like, yes, Give me more of that, please. Yeah. Just give me more of that.
Yeah.
And to talk about Picard a little bit, between Picard and Discovery, specifically season 3, DS9 has gotten some love.
Yeah.
And, because DS9 has not ever really experienced a whole lot of love in its entirety. And when we both agree that it's probably the best Star Trek ever made. Mm-hmm. I really love seeing the fact that DS9 gets a little bit of love in both series, and so I can't wait to see more. Okay, I'm not going to do it. We'll talk about it in the news here in a second. Yeah. Yep. So, what else?
I think that's it.
You are watching Breaking Bad.
I am in the last season of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And that probably, it'll be done soon.
Yeah.
Which comes with another announcement.
Yeah.
Is I'm going to be starting Enterprise.
And so will I. So what we decided we're going to do on that is we're going to watch a season. And instead of trying to break it down like an entire series, we're going to, at the end of a season, we'll have a brief little synopsis at the end of it. And I'm actually really excited for it.
I am too. I am in a sticky situation with KOTOR.
Oh no.
I feel like I need more of a guide for playing this game.
Oh yeah?
Or just a different reference of how someone else plays. One of the YouTubers I follow has been playing KOTOR.
Okay.
And he has now passed where I left off.
Okay.
He's on episode 15.
Yeah. Sounds right.
So I'm okay. I haven't watched any yet, but I might.
Okay.
And watch what he has done.
So before you do that.
And then see if I want to change up a strategy that might involve me restarting the game.
Okay. So if you restart, let's play it together. If you're interested.
Okay.
Because I do have an Xbox. And I do have KOTOR on the Xbox. Original Xbox. As it's supposed to be played. If you're interested.
I had no idea.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that.
What if we do a Let's Play of KOTOR and
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So you guys are hearing it first. Now that I'll have a place to do this and time and dedication and what have you much closer, if you want to do a Let's Play, let's do a Let's Play. And I will figure out the recording and all that jazz. Because I'm assuming, my plan is to eventually do a Star Trek Online Let's Play, right? And I'd love for you to be part of that. Because being that it's online, we can play together, right? But... if it has to be done on the 360, which has recording technology, I'd be glad to buy it for the 360 or what have you. I've got it, and I've got the 360. I've got the Xbox, and I've got.
I think we can talk about details.
Yeah, we're not going to detail it right now for sure.
Yeah,
but here coming soon, I think we're going to have a playthrough of KOTOR. Because I really want to play it again. Yeah. I just don't know if I want to go through the slog of Taris again. I talk about it all the time. I don't want to go through the slog of Taris alone by myself. But there are several things that I know about the game that I was never able to teach you, that we can leave Taris as a ridiculously OP character. And it just makes the playthrough a lot of fun going from there. So you're here to hear first.
Yeah.
It sounds like it might be a possibility. Now, it could be. Either way, now that, a little bit closer, I have a little more time. I definitely want to do some playthroughs of video games. I want, to find the old Deep Space Nine video game.
Jordan?
There is a Deep Space Nine
Jordan,
video.
I need to tell you something.
What?
I was just this week looking at that game.
For Super Nintendo?
No.
Where it was
a big box PC game.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh no.
I was just looking at this. Harbinger.
Yeah.
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 I was just looking at that because I saw someone selling that on eBay.
Yeah.
That box is dope,
dude,
man.
I had that game back in the day. That's the thing. Like, there's so many good games. Like, I think on the PS2, I still have Star Trek Armada.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have Encounters. And, I'm trying to think of the other one. Then, of course, there's like the old like Xbox Star Wars games, mm-hmm. like Jedi Knight and like stuff like that. So I think, we should definitely like look at that for sure. So awesome. The fact that I bring it up and you were looking at it is pretty awesome.
No, like here, I'll put it in the episode, but that's the box for it.
Yes, I had that exact box. Oh, it is
Bajoran Temple Gate like looking thing.
Yes, dude.
Holy shit.
Yes, I had that game and it was so good. I actually had it on PC and Super Nintendo. They had a Super Nintendo version of this.
Ooh.
Side scroller Star Trek, dude.
Yeah, no, that's definitely that screams completely different genre of game.
Yes. Yes.
You don't put a 2-disc PC game into a Super Nintendo. Those are two different genres.
Yes. So I believe they're both the same game, but done completely differently.
Like same story.
Same story, just done completely different. So, well, that's awesome, dude. We should definitely we'll talk more about that.
Talk about that.
For me, fairly simple and straightforward. I been watching a little bit of Clone Wars, actually. Mm-hmm. I started with the first few episodes. I've done some skipping a little bit, but I definitely have caught like the first couple of episodes. The animation's rough. Like it looks good, but I mean, compared to what we're seeing now, is kind of ridiculous. The one episode that I want to talk about real quick, because other than that, like I'm a piece of shit and I haven't watched or listened or read or listened to High Republic yet, Light of the Jedi, but I do have it downloaded and I'm ready to go for this week to start listening to it. It's 13 hours. I was kind of surprised by that. So I've got 2 weeks until I move in. And so I figure that's going to be good enough time to get that one.
I think
commuting.
So.
I hope so. God. Yeah. So really beyond that, like I really haven't been doing too much, but the episode I kind of wanted to highlight was Rookies. And it was the first time you were introduced to like Heavy and Fives and the writing in that episode is when you're first introduced to Rex for the first time, and just the writing in that episode was so good.
It's really good.
It's really good, and every time I like on Disney Plus, like I'll just be scrolling through and I'm like, Clone Wars, like Clone Wars, like there are certain episodes that are really good, and it's kind of like with DS9 or anything else, like once you actually get into watching the episodes, you're like, oh yeah, well that part that I'm thinking about is kind of dumb, but it's only like 30 seconds of the episode. I'm already over it. Filoni has known his shit since the beginning. I mean, I've watched a lot of like interviews from like the beginnings of the Clone Wars and stuff like that, and I mean, he sat down with George Lucas for a year talking about Star Wars before there was ever an episode showing up. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it really is. And the fact that kind of like going back to you're talking about anime, the fact that, Filoni got his start on The Last Airbender, like, and it's like one of the few animes that I've ever watched, and I had no idea he had any part of that. And
if I'm being completely honest and accurate, actually, it's not an anime. It's anime inspired, but
right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's for Nickelodeon, so I mean, it is what it is. Once again, I don't watch a whole lot of anime, so that's about as heavy into it as I'm about to go. And so, although I am interested to see, with Visions, Star Wars Visions, the anime look at Star Wars, I'm actually really kind of fascinated by it, just because of the simple fact that Star Wars does get its pull from Japanese, from specifically, what is it? Not Shogun, but samurai culture.
Right.
So I mean, and Lucas was very heavily inspired by Kurosawa and McMahon. So I mean, it is what it is. And so I'm really excited for that. But what I've kind of got from these first couple episodes of the Clone Wars is like it was very clearly defined. What I also found out, it was Grievous that said hello there the first time.
Yes.
And I love how it's Kenobi, like they just kind of put it in there, but it was Kenobi making fun of him every single time afterwards. It's that sass, man. It's just the Kenobi
snark.
It's the snark. And I just Kenobi's so great. I can't wait for the show. I really can't. It's so God, we're coming up on it here. Well, we're not, but I mean, it's filming, so there's that.
Yeah.
I did hear, I guess that's it for me. So I guess kind of rolling into the news side of things, they are filming Kenobi partially on location and in Tunisia, and partially in the same setup that they use for The Mandalorian. So we're gonna see some pretty crazy set pieces going forward. Let's see here. Star Trek news. Strange New Worlds just got quarantined. So one of the guest stars showed up positive for fucking COVID. And news real quick for everybody out there. We have both now, Matt and I have been both vaccinated, which is pretty dope, without ever having caught the disease, either one of us. Yeah. And I'm going to thank the Force for that one very much so. But yeah, so Strange New Worlds has been shut down production. I don't see it's going to be too much of an issue. Hopefully none of the actors have gotten sick. Picard's rolling along, doing just fine on that front. I did watch the Star Trek Day, the First Contact Day, thing they did on YouTube, with Mike, or the guy McMahon. Trying to think of the name the guy who's running Lower Decks. I can't think of the name right now off the top of my head.
My mind went to Vince McMahon.
Same. Yeah. If you'd seen the meme that I had seen earlier today about Vince McMahon, it was pretty amazing. But I can't talk about it here because it's gross. So the talking about that, like Lower Decks, it was like a panel of, it had Brent Spiner, and a couple of other, like it had Jonathan Frakes, and then a couple other people, and they're talking about comedy in Star Trek. And the showrunner for Lower Decks said this time around in this coming up season that the gloves are off. Like they have found their niche.
I didn't know that the gloves were on in the first season.
They were. If we notice, he was like, if you watch the first 5 episodes were very like kind of, typical Star Trek, right?
It was sort of typical Star Trek.
But then they started pushing envelopes in the last couple of episodes, and that's because they found out the fans freaking loved it.
Yeah.
And they found their niche. They found their style of comedy. And so he's like, gloves are off. Jonathan Frakes said that the Lower Decks version of Riker is so ridiculous. He can't wait for everyone to see it. If you guys have seen the teaser, apparently it's just nothing but that the entire season. Boimler, I think the story is going to kind of go that Boimler can't handle how crazy Riker is because he's not by the book and has to go back to the Cerritos just because he can't handle Riker anymore.
Oh my God.
Because Riker is just over the top, like every bit as crazy Riker as he could possibly get. I cannot wait. Dude, it's next month. Next month we get Star Wars and Star Trek again. Like, what? Like, we might actually have to do recordings every single week to talk about this.
Dude.
That's awesome. So, I mean, really on the Star Trek front, that's really kind of what's been going on. Everybody's filming. I do recommend, though, you take a look at the YouTube videos that they put out.
I've seen a little bit of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing.
Dude, the First Contact, the one where they actually celebrated the 25th anniversary of First Contact coming out. Alice Krieg, who plays the Queen, she's fantastic in that interview. She is just, you can tell, like, you could tell that Brent Spiner and Patrick Stewart have just this love, and Jonathan Frakes as well. They just have this love for her. And it's just, it comes through so well. Like this is amazing. So watch those videos if you guys haven't. On the Star Wars side, obviously we have, Bad Batch coming up here real soon. A little bit of Kenobi news, in the sense of, there's speculation. Someone saw Hayden Christensen in Vader's suit without a helmet on, all scarred the fuck up. And I know we're not going into speculation too much, but if we get to see Hayden Christensen all scarred up in Vader's suit, please.
Yeah.
Please. Please.
Yeah.
So there's really not a whole lot going on that front. Once again, I mean, everything's kind of seems to be filming, and is there something that you found?
Something that, I mean, you might have seen on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But caught me off guard is they put up Star Wars Vintage.
Vintage
Star Wars.
Really?
Which contains
original releases?
No, the other Clone Wars animated series.
Oh, the 2003 animated series?
Yes.
Ooh.
That's on there.
Interesting.
And also Ewoks.
Oh no.
Faithful Wookiee.
I don't even know that one.
Story of the Faithful Wookiee.
Huh.
Caravan of Courage.
Oh no.
And Ewoks Battle for Endor.
Oh no.
So
yeah. There's that.
More interest in the 2003 animated version of it, but
I just think it keeps thinking. I think of Obi-Wan looking like Hercules.
He does.
He really does. It like Disney Hercules, and it's kind of hilarious actually. So.
I only have one other thing. Actually, I forgot to say. I watched Star Wars Lego Holiday Special.
Oh, nice. How was that?
It's good.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what they ended up doing with the sequel trilogy of the Lego games.
Okay.
Where they have the Lego characters have voices. I was raised on the first two Lego Star Wars games, where there's no voices and it was all, just like visual gags.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, the only way to play that again more recently is to get an older version of both games, because the Skywalker Saga one has redone the cutscenes for the prequel and original trilogy.
Wow.
So to get that original, you have to go back. But I think the only there are a couple funny moments of example, all three versions of Obi-Wan meeting each other and going, "Hello there."
Nice.
There's a couple other ones. It's, Palpatine and Vader are all goofy, and Vader gets him a number 1 Emperor mug, and
oh my god,
he's like, "Nah, it's garbage present." It's funny enough. I think the one bit of canon thing we can pull from that,
there's canon in there,
is that Rey teaches Finn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like it.
So I think that's the one thing we can pull from that.
I like it. Yeah, actually, that's one thing that I really wish they kind of explored a little bit.
I do wish that they explored
I love
more.
the fact that Finn was comfortable with the lightsaber, and you could tell he can sense Rey. He's strong with the Force.
He's Leia.
He is Leia.
He's in the Leia situation.
Exactly. And I love that. I really do. I want to see more of that.
In 20 years, we'll also see him sort of unconscious in space and then fly towards the ship again.
Exactly. And not given the proper treatment that he deserves. But besides the
point. That already happened.
Right. What? No. Are you kidding? And I guess I did forget something as well. I did watch the last 3 episodes of Discovery, season 3. Just as kind of like a standalone arc. Really good this time around. Like I only watched them once, which was kind of crazy. And that moment with Vance and when he tells her that I want you to be captain, like that's just one of my favorite moments in the entire series. Like when he's like, my daughter, she would draw, she would draw symbols for her math and it didn't make any sense, but it would make sense to her and it made sense, right? He goes, you do the same thing. And it's just such a great moment. I love the fact in the previews for season 4, we get to see Saru in a Kelpian uniform. I love the fact that we get to see, they only imply it, but you get to see Saru in one of the red command uniforms, at some point when he's shaking Burnham's hand. And, but the thing that I really took from those last 3 episodes was Gray. And how devastated he was when they're shutting down the hologram. Like, I really felt for Gray in that moment. Because, like, Gray had, we don't know a whole lot about Gray, right? A really interesting character.
It'll be season 4.
Absolutely. In the previews, there's a lot of Gray in there. And I think it's a really interesting, just like, that wanting to be seen, that wanting to be acknowledged, that is such an interesting, like, the Discovery was filmed and edited before COVID hit, right? The season 3. But the quote at the end of season 3 from Gene Roddenberry that they put up at the very end of the episode, that basically states, for any one person to make a connection with another person, that is everything, right? For Gray to have that connection for a moment, to feel legit and real, and like, can you imagine from Gray's perspective, like, am I just a figment of this imagination? Or like, am I real? And that validation, and then having it stolen from you again. Ugh, man, that moment, like, that really got to me. And I feel better this time around also as well about how Saru was treated. Because I mentioned at the end of the season, like, I was like, I don't really like how Saru was, treated in this season. I really do kind of enjoy it. Like, he was, it makes sense, like, why he went with Su'Kal. It really does make sense. And so, and getting to see him in next season, but
exactly.
he's not going to be captain of the Discovery. So I'm curious. And they don't seem like they've identified a first officer issue, but he's also been promoted to captain. So who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
The writers do.
They do. And we will hopefully it seems like Discovery is going to come out, like, Picard is teased for early 2022. So I wouldn't be surprised if it goes, Lower Decks and then either probably Strange. Well, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, we could see Picard like at this time next year or something like that.
Probably.
So, but it's going to be interesting. And then we just know that we're going to be starting that sequence of never not having Star Trek and Star Wars on TV anymore, which is going to be mind blowing at all times. So,
yeah,
it's pretty awesome. So, yeah, I guess it's question time, isn't it? Yeah. So we're going to do a little bit different. Freeform a little bit. I don't think the question's going to be too crazy. I wanted to ask Matt the same question I asked him 2 podcasts ago.
Because I told him that I had remembered a brilliant answer
and then
to his question that gets more to, like, the heart of what he was talking about. Now, I mean, all the stuff I said was correct and, all that stuff.
Right.
But I had done, just like when, some dude insults you at school and you walk down and you're sitting in class 2 periods later and you thought of the best comeback ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was exactly like that. And I forgot by the time of this recording. I forgot what that
what the answer was.
The answer was, so.
And the worst part is like, you know, what's the best way of putting this? We asked the question, like, I was like, okay, well, before we started recording, I'm like, well, do we want to ask the question? Then I forgot the question I was going to ask you. What was that question?
Why do you come back Star Wars to Star Trek? Like, what brings you back?
Yeah, so, you know, that's, yeah. What brings you back? Because for me, what brings me back is the same things that, well, what brings me back to Star Trek specifically is not the things that informed my core values as a kid, right? Like, I mean, I said it before, my love of science, my feeling of equality and inclusivity with people. IDIC, you know, IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations is I think something that we should all aspire to.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we're all just the human race, right? And so, you know, like, but what keeps me coming back is that feeling of familiarity with this world and the comfort that I have in it. So, and everything that's happened, like Star Trek has been a part of my life since long before you were even born, right? Long before. It's part of what, like, I believe that I'm a manager and I lead restaurants and I lead people because watching Captain Pike, or not Captain Pike, but Captain Picard and Captain Kirk when I was a kid, you know, and so a lot of my core values, a lot of the things that made me who I am today can be partially put on Star Trek. And so when I watch it, it gives me that sense of...
You know what? I don't know if I said this on the podcast episode, but what you just said might have been my answer.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So I may be repeating myself.
Yeah, that's fine.
But one of the things that upon reflection for several years has been I've played it safe.
Right.
And so episodes like when Picard goes back in time because of Q.
Yeah.
And makes me wonder, like, okay, where do I want to be? What can I do?
Yeah.
To be more involved in my own story,
right?
Than not being in the background. And it's been a slow progression from where I was like in middle school,
right?
And and several steps of realizing I need to be more active in my thing and not letting things happen to and around me that move me forward. I am the driving force.
Right. You want to be the driving force as opposed to a non-willing participant in your own life.
Exactly. Yes. And being more active. Yeah. So it's that kind of stuff where you see all these people making decisions, being influential. Right. I almost said being influencers, which is
not okay.
A different meaning now.
Yeah, and that's not okay.
So, but that's one of the things we're seeing, and that's sort of the high I ride on now, is seeing people kick ass.
Right.
Even if it's being a drug lord.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, hell yeah, Jesse, I want you to do the best thing. And now I'm hating Walt because he's fucking you up.
Yep.
So it's that stuff. So I don't remember if I said already, but that might have been the thing that I was trying to go for.
And that's actually what you didn't say. You did not say that. And so, and that's fantastic, you know, and that's the thing, like, you know, you say that you're learning that now, right? And
I'm in a position now where I can move that forward to the most I can.
Right. And so you're learning this now, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm almost 40, and I'm just now been figuring this out over the last year. I wish that I had taken that from Star Trek. I really do, because, you know, what I took from it was like the sense of leadership and accountability, right? And when you make a decision, you have to stand by it, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? My job is not super important, but I've got 20 people who work for me who depend on me to make sure that store opens every single day so that they can pay bills, right? And I take that responsibility very seriously. And that came from Star Trek, right? I wish that I had taken that, because absolutely I feel that. Like, you see characters like Tilly, right? This Starfleet cadet who, at the beginning, who says... Goofy and quirky, and says, I'm going to be a captain someday. And you're kind of like, whatever. Like, good luck with that. What is she doing at the end of season 3? First officer aboard the Discovery, figuring shit out.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody is capable of anything.
Yeah.
Right? Star Wars does that. That's one of the things that Star Wars does best, is like...
Trek.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and even Star Wars to a point.
Yes, but
if episode 9 hadn't happened and they made her a Palpatine,
it doesn't drive that point home as thoroughly or repeatedly as Star Trek does.
Right. And so that's the thing. Like, it's like, for me, it is everything to be in charge of yourself and to drive yourself. You cannot expect another person to do a damn thing for you, right? And that's why those stories of like Data is always striving to be human, to be something that he is never possibly capable of being.
Short of Q magic. Yeah.
Right? And even then, Q never did that.
Never does. I would never curse you with being human.
Right? But Data gets that payoff in the end.
Yeah.
That strive, that push, that want, that desire to be more, although it led to his death.
That's part of the experience.
It's part of the experience, right? It's all about life. And that's what Star Trek really does do best, is it just gives... There's something about just taking people out of their own time right now. Like, right now is a very tumultuous time, right? And... as COVID is attempting to break free and the world is attempting to open back up again, it's like, holy shit, right? And I do believe that, like, for me, I feel grounded enough right now that, like, because of the lessons taught to me through Star Trek and Star Wars, specifically through Star Trek, has let me be more of, like, who I am, as opposed to, like, this person who I was never happy with, and to be happy in my own skin. And so, a long way of putting that, that's really awesome that that's kind of one of the things that you take from that. Because, like, you have just only watched everything just once, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Like, DS9, Next Gen, Original Series, and Enterprise, Voyager is just not part of that equation. Even Discovery, I've watched Discovery easily 4 times through now. Easily. Picard 5 times through. Like, Lower Decks 3 times through. Voyager once. Kind of tells you something. But the more you watch it, the more those lessons become evident. And they, it's not done in a preachy, beat you over the head sort of church way. It's more like, watches Picard and his crew go through the day-to-day, like, what have you. And then, you have those mistakes that happen and you learn from them, right? And that's life. And so, I think that's really awesome. I think that's a great answer. So, less Trekky, but more of a personal sort of question. So, and that's what I was hoping to get out of that. So, yeah.
My question is, as I said, involves Picard.
Yeah.
So and it's something that dawned on me as I was watching the finale. We have those, well, I won't say wormhole aliens because that's a different thing, but the super synths.
Yeah.
Super synths. They don't have a name, do they?
No, but there's been plenty, not to interrupt the question, please finish the question here in a second, but there has been several mentions of progenitor species. You have the Iconians, the Preservers, and there's one more, the Takan. Empire.
Okay.
And then the First Federation as well. Kirk comes across the remnants of the First Federation. There's that episode with the kid who had the man voice. Do you remember seeing that episode?
No.
Oh, it was bad. It was really bad. It was I want to say it was a young Ron Howard, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But yeah, so there was mention of a few progenitor species, that kind of seeded the galaxy, but nothing like this. So that's actually, if you guys are familiar with the game at all, Stellaris. Are you familiar with that game at all?
I think so.
It's a 4X grand strategy from Paradox.
Okay.
So they're the ones who make they make Crusader Kings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're also responsible for no, not the Total War games, but so yeah, they're like really known for like 4X grand strategy, and it's a space game, and one of the end game events is what do they call it? The contingency. And it's a very similar sort of thing. Messing with technology, messing with AI too much, it brings forth these beings from another galaxy or from another universe or what have you that kind of take over, but there's no name for them.
Okay.
And I'm curious. I really am.
My question is...
Yeah.
I immediately drew parallels to Control.
Ooh. That's interesting, but I would counter that the Control only existed like maybe 150 years before, like, or 100 and odd years before this.
Right. But didn't it also come from the future? No?
Control, basically what Control was the AI that Section 31 and Starfleet had created for threat assessment and what have you. And what happened was the classic trope of AI
taking over
and going crazy. There's a lot of people in the Star Trek community that believe that was actually the beginning of the Borg.
Which leads me to V'ger, yes.
Yes. A lot of people believe that V'ger also the beginnings of the Borg. And William Shatner, he wrote, I've talked about him before with Matt. He wrote himself back to life. He wrote Kirk back to life. If you've never read any of William Shatner's books, you should. He's actually a really good writer. Like, he usually does, like, when he writes Star Trek books, he writes it with these two ghostwriters with him, Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens. They've written quite a few Star Trek books. They haven't written one in a while. Like Federation was one of the books. It's actually a fantastic book. It actually dealt with Federation came out about a year or so before First Contact.
Okay.
And it was like this story of Zefram Cochrane. And it was kind of a cool story, but they wrote that one. They did a lot of writing with him. And in his books, specifically The Return, it's the book where it basically takes place immediately after Generations.
Okay.
Like as the Enterprise or as the crew is leaving on the Farragut, the Romulans show up with the Borg, and they basically find out that Kirk they're looking for another Locutus. They think, if it's not Patrick, if it's not Captain Picard, then might as well be Kirk. And so they revive Kirk using nanites. And it's a long way of putting that's a bad book. It's a bad series of books. They're well written. The story is well thought out. He's well in touch with Kirk and Spock and McCoy. You wouldn't believe this, but I mean, like, he really is really well in touch with all of the characters of his show.
Sure, yeah.
And so they're written really well. They feel true. They feel right. And one of the things that he posits in that is that V'ger, when V'ger was forced to leave with Captain Decker and Lieutenant Ilia, I remembered those names.
You remembered those names?
Holy shit.
For a movie you never go back to.
Dude, it's been seriously 25 years since I watched it. And Lieutenant Ilia was also a Deltan. They don't really talk about those characters too much, but it's primarily a female-dominated species, and I'm surprised they haven't gone too much back into that. But they're all bald. really highly emotional characters. A lot of people believe that they actually was kind of like what the Betazoids were based off of, just because they were highly emotionally intelligent. I'm proud of myself for remembering that name. But he basically says that, when V'ger leaves, that it goes out to the Delta Quadrant and basically eventually becomes the Borg. I could buy either or. Like, I mean, the thing with the Control, though, is Control dies.
Yes, Control dies.
It has to. It has to, because, I mean, it's proven. Like, the events of the Next Generation, the original series, all the movies, everything all happens, right? What's amazing about it is we knew, like, in Discovery Season 2, the whole thing was the future is going to die, right? But we all know it happened already. Right. And so, but I totally forgot about it at the time. Like, it's so good. But yeah, they never really said, like, the Conclave of 8, the Romulans, when they go to that planet with the 8 stars in the system, like when one of the Rios's, the emergency engineering hologram is like, well, just to kind of, when Rafi asks, why would anybody do that? And he's like, well, just to kind of show you how big it is, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this species was able to drag 8 stars together in one system and create an octenary system. Like, in science, like when they say it, like when he says it's almost impossibility, it literally is. Like, I think there's proof of like a quaternary system with 4 stars, and that's all we know so far. And like, to think of, like, I could be wrong on that, but it's crazy to think that like this species was strong enough to be able to drag 8 stars, put them in motion together, and then stick a planet in the middle.
Yeah.
As a warning, saying don't bring. Or now that I'm thinking about it, who warned us? Who left the warning? They never answered that question. The Conclave of 8 received a warning, but from whom?
It wasn't a warning. It was a message to other.
Right. You're right.
Sense.
You're right. Exactly. Now that I think about it, because when she mind melded with Dr. Jurati, which I found very odd, by the way, but I'm not going to go into that. But when she mind melded and she was able to finally process it, you're right. It wasn't that planet was there as a welcome, as a message, come and see us. And so, yeah, I'm really kind of interested. I really want to know what that species in. What is it, like species 8472, where it's like another just like fluidic space, or are they really ascended to the next plane of existence? And it really does make that kind of question very interesting, because Star Trek never really talks about that.
Some other dimensions.
Yeah, they don't really talk too much about it. I mean, the whole species 8472 and fluidic space is about as far as they go into that. And it's very interesting. But yeah, I really am actually curious. You really piqued my curiosity on that
there's
one.
The word tear.
Yeah,
rung a bell on that.
Yeah, you're creating a tear in subspace, and so
I forget exactly, but wasn't something similar done to get to the fluidic?
Yes, they had to do tears in subspace, and they also the Ascent episodes of the Next Generation with Data and Lore and the Borg, when they're first exploring the hyperspace, or what is it? The Borg Transwarp Network. When they're first kind of exploring, like when the Borg ship goes through and appears somewhere else, that's like the beginning of them exploring the Transwarp Network. They also use the word tear in that one as well. And so, yeah, I think it literally is tearing the fabric of space and exposing like another just layer to it. And I really am fascinated. I think
it's definitely my thought is that it's also it's a different dimension, not a different timeline. Because that one timeline is much more intensive work.
Right. Exactly.
To do that, but something about where different things can go, and just the level of the intricacies, the size reminded me a lot of Control.
Yeah.
And I easily see. I mean, Control was all about getting rid of all sentient life.
Right.
You could argue that synthetic life could just be incorporated in with Control.
Yeah.
And that you just have this giant collective being that,
Absolutely. And that's what Star Trek has done really well lately. Like,
but I agree. Probably it isn't going to be Control, because Control has to be completely.
It has to be completely wiped out. It has to be.
But
I mean, Georgiou stomped that out.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
So, but something I sort of wanted to talk with you about and pick, mostly because I mean I was aware that it wasn't going to be like, it wasn't Control, and there was a similar connection with the Borg that you could go there, but more so of putting it out here and then having you pick out from around that area to then talk about. So,
and that's the thing. Like I said, the closest that it reminds me of is Stellaris. In the game, like the way Stellaris rolls, you start out with like one planet, and it's all click. It's all just point and click, click, right? It really is it's one of the greatest 4X games that I've ever played. Like Civilization is a great series, and I really do love strategy games. Like the Total War games are always some of my favorites, but this one is like one of the greatest strategy games because like it's been out for 4 years and they just released like version 3, and this game is so deep and so incredibly intricate, and it's all kind of like there are names of planets and you look at it and go, look at that name. That's really interesting. Kronos? Really? Without the apostrophe in the middle? So they really kind of pull a lot from like Star Wars, and there's Star Wars mods and Star Trek mods for it and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But in the game, there are certain technologies that you can research, and they're marked as either red or purple as being rare technologies. Red is a rare, dangerous technology, and if you research it, then all of a sudden your AI speed goes up by 5%, and then you get this new sequence of events that happen and this new chain of events that happens in the game. And eventually it leads to this option for you to turn your species into basically to evolve and shed the mortal flesh and become robots, basically. It's fantastic. Like, you want this to happen because all of a sudden your empire doesn't require food anymore. Food becomes a tradable asset. Money, right? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But then you kick off the end game. And it's the contingency, and it's basically done in the exact same way. They literally tear a hole in subspace and pour through and infest the entire galaxy. And it's all because the door was opened by your species. The worst part is if you have a different empire that's near you, and say you go psionic and you're like focused more on like mind power and stuff like that, but your neighbors are AI, well, that dice roll happens, and all of a sudden you, who is not an AI, is not at all equipped to handle and fight this enemy, and you have to adapt and figure it out. And it is so fun. It's a lot of fun, but that story just reminds me of that, and I wish I knew. I really wish that I knew, but at the same time, like, Star Trek doesn't have to explain everything.
No.
That's the beauty of it.
Star Wars job.
That's Star Wars job. I just do love the fact that, like when Soji has got, she's like in that moment where she, like, it's all just about to collapse. And you see that moment where she's like, you know what? No, let's not do this. It's such
it's real good.
It's a real good moment. But when you see those, like, it's literally like these tentacles are just scraping and clawing their way out, and it's just like,
though it was funny watching them go back in, because one of the arms does this like, oh wait,
no. Exactly.
Like, oh, what? Seriously? Come on, man.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, they may never say anything about it again, but
it seems like it's a weird thing that they're probably perfectly fine with never explaining.
Yeah, I mean, they did with the Iconians. It was touched on in the original series, and then it was that episode with Picard and Worf where they kept like that window would appear and like different planets would appear and stuff like that. That was kind of the only one. The Preservers were mentioned in one episode of the original series, and what's funny is the William Shatner books where he brought himself back. It actually, after the Borg, the Preservers actually became a big part of that story. And then there was the Takan Empire, and that was once again was only just brought up briefly in the original series. There are like Dr. Galen, the archaeologist that tried to get Picard to leave with him in that whole episode where we're talking about the seeding of the galaxy with people. That's really, I mean, I'm interested in that. I do find it interesting. Like, I find it interesting how the Bajorans were in space 2,500 years before anybody else. Like, are the Bajorans one of the seed species in the galaxy? That is something that I'd actually really like for Star Trek to explore. Like, I find that incredibly fascinating. Like, we just saw the episode of the DS9 the other day where Sisko and Jake were doing the solar sail. That was basically happening. Like, they were recreating a voyage that happened in what would be our 1700s. That's fascinating. That's incredibly fascinating. And I would really love to explore that. And a little piece of news that I forgot to mention was, I don't know if we podcasted since, when was last, it's
like 2 weeks ago, I think.
So First Contact Day hadn't happened by the time that we recorded.
We were doing it right before.
Yeah. So like, I mean, obviously Q season 2 is going to be the antagonist for the season. I can't wait for that. So I mentioned earlier that Discovery and Picard gave DS9 some love, and when that, I told you that when that preview for season 2 dropped, I literally have watched it like at least 25 times now, just trying to pick up little things. I've got my theories about what it is. Once again, we don't really talk about all of that. I think time travel is 100% thing. But when it's going through and Picard is talking, you see a picture of the Enterprise D, and then it focuses on the Stargazer model, right? And then it goes to Paradise Lost, and then it kind of pulls back, or you see the comm badge, right? And then it pulls back to the room, and you have that tablet sitting in the middle. It was all written in Bajoran. That was a Bajoran tablet.
Oh.
Specifically from an orb.
Huh.
And that's cool. the one little thing that like it clicked on me when I watched it just the other day. I'm like, wait, I look at it and I look at it and I look at it and I'm like, where have I seen this? Where have I seen this? Where have I seen this? It's what you see around the orbs. It's the Bajoran. Basically, it's like an old Bajoran symbol, and it looks like what's been around the orbs. Now, the orb that we see in DS9 is the orb of I can remember Lieutenant Ilea, but I can't remember the orb that is in fucking Deep Space Nine. But one of the orbs that exists is of the Orb of Time. And what? Why? Yeah. Why is that there? And I don't want to speculate too much, but this year they've talked like specifically on Star Trek Day, like not Star Trek Day, First Contact Day, which is what April 5th is going to be First Contact Day. Yeah, May the 4th. I think it's perfect. But like on First Contact Day, they mentioned it became the Star Trek universe. It was not like, until then we'd always mentioned the Star Trek universe, but until then they had never coined it. They'd never used that phrase. This is now the Star Trek universe. You're talking like MCU, you're talking Star Wars, like sort of thing. And it just makes total sense, right? Star Trek's got this huge playground, this huge sandbox they can play with. Is Picard season 2? This is the question we're asking a lot of Star Trek questions. This is a little weird, but it's what it is.
It's what it is.
I know what I feel about it. The question that I have for you is as my second question. do you think that a lot like with Mandalorian season 2, how we got the sense that they're setting up the greater Star Wars universe, right? So, we got Mando going, like, he's now Mandalore, right? He has the Darksaber. Bo-Katan has to fight him for it. There is season 2, right? But then adding Ahsoka, talking about Grand Admiral Thrawn, all of this stuff, right? Luke, all of these things have now created this sense that the Star Wars universe is now going to create a much more bigger MCU sort of thing. Enterprise or Star Trek has that same thing now going on. Do you think that season 2 of Picard is going to launch a bit of a Star Wars era sort of like spin-off, like where we could start to see smaller stories of DS9 and stuff like that?
Of a revival.
Of a revival. Like
of the old stuff.
Of just like having... It's like almost like I feel like this veil has been lifted off of Star Trek in a way where people were always afraid of touching Kirk and Spock era. They've always been afraid of touching the next gen era, right? They don't want to touch it. They didn't want to move forward. They didn't want to go anywhere with it, right? They didn't want to do it. And yet here they are doing it, and it's being received incredibly well. Like one of my favorite scenes in season 3 of Discovery is when that temporal agent, from when he's wearing the early Next Generation era uniform, seeing that uniform, seeing that comm badge, seeing it in 4K HD, makes me happy.
Yeah.
Right? And it's that acknowledgement of the past. It's that acknowledgement of all of this has actually happened. This is all part of our universe, and all of these actors still want to do it. Do we get that? Do we see that? Do we see that? What do you think?
It makes a lot of sense to go back and go like include all these guys in now, because you already have, I mean, the fans have already set the timeline. Star Trek has already kept track of their lore very well, but they've back then the Marvel universe flopped several times.
It did.
So many times.
I mean, dude, like we saw like Iron Man, it was super popular, but Iron Man 2 were like, what are you guys trying to do here? Like
I'm going back farther.
Are you talking like
I'm going like the original Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, that was a bad movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like the Hulk TV show.
Yeah. Oh, they tried and started and stopped so many times.
They started and stopped many times.
I totally forgot about that.
It never took off.
Yeah. Yeah.
They never got a chance. And then also because of how split up the rights were for that, like that was
Sony owning part of it. With
the only comic book company could do it was DC.
Yeah.
DC was able to do because
soft. they focused on Superman and Batman.
They did Superman, Batman. They
in
didn't
separate
really do
worlds.
Anything else.
They didn't intertwine the worlds.
No. I mean,
they're in the same.
Closest you got was, and they started doing this with like more so the cartoons.
Yeah.
Of having crossover episodes, having episodes that involved, you're going over to Metropolis,
right, and then you're heading over to Gotham,
and there's like that kind of stuff where there's not. So like, yes, we are part of the whole thing, but there's not. I mean, you could go back to the Super Friends, you could go back to the Justice League,
right,
and you have that, but obviously, but there wasn't really like a Marvel. Well, there wasn't an Avengers TV show. There wasn't
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that's a terrible show, by the way. It's really bad.
But there wasn't like this thing, and so it was all standalone things that could casually tie into each other, reference each other, but they never became a whole thing.
Right.
You look where we are now. We have a timeline that is pretty set
and pretty, very clearly defined.
We don't have a messy canon.
Yeah.
So, like, let's just stick some glue in between those pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, and
have some connecting elements between, and that was now, again, we don't have to go back to the middle gap between Next Gen and DS9 or Voyager, DS9, Next Gen sort of time period, but like we can.
Well, and I would really like to see, if I were to see like one era for that MCU to exist in, it would have to be in the Next Gen era, just because you have those 3 casts, right, that all are still there.
No, yeah, exactly. Like I think we could be like more center in that and going like DS9 era, because it's at that point we've passed Next Gen, and we're at or around near
the movie era.
Right. We also are closer to Voyager.
Yeah, I still call that the Next Gen era, just because once again it's the next generation, right?
Yeah.
And so I will always refer to it as the Next Gen era. For some reason, I don't know why.
Here's the thing: is I've from my new perspective of all this, going through the first time, I get it.
Yeah.
But Next Generation is very solidly the TV show only.
Right.
And I consider, this is also me just thinking DS9 is the best fucking thing since cut bread.
Right.
But I count the Next Gen movies, yes, they are Next Gen, but they are also... Their DS9 era. You got the new uniforms,
you have the Defiant, you have Worf.
In my mind, that is a separate era.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you define generations by leaps or big events. You have the original series, you have the big innovation and the piece with the Klingons.
Yeah.
You have the warp technology and the Klingons kick off Next Gen.
Yeah.
The Dominion War is where I cut.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You start the Dominion War. You have a war with someone on the complete whose origins are on practically the opposite side of the galaxy, and it gets Starfleet kicked in the butt for being
too soft
and relaxing in their season 1 comfortable reclining chairs at their tables, Dominion War for me is when that cuts, and that is now in a different era.
Right, for sure. And the only reason, like I said, the reason I bring that up is
because it's...
the Next Generation created it, and it's all based on kind of that lore. But, I think I'd like to see it primarily sticking there. But Short Treks has done a great job of, just exploring that universe.
We've said before that,
it's a great...
Seeing a Quark episode, seeing...
Yeah, just those...
Something.
Just something, let's see DS9.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Right.
This, you mentioning the Bajoran text there. Yeah. I'm immediately. There's something there.
There has to be something there. They're not just going to put that there for a reason.
If you're going, if you bring up Bajor, you have to bring up DS9.
Yeah.
And holy shit, will I be excited if we see DS9
seriously
4K? Where are we at?
Yeah.
Where are we at?
Yeah.
We can now I am totally down. Again, my quote, my rock is not mixing big players in with other big players, because then you get lost in the story. But what's up with the Ciscos?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we never got the answer to that question.
I wanted to know, and that's a whole thing. Where
the only Serac has said the only way he'll do it is with Avery, and Avery said the only way he'll do it was with Serac.
Yeah.
Come on, man. The only person who is the only one in all of Star Trek who said that I don't want to come back is Colin Meaney. It would suck to not have O'Brien.
It would.
It would. Yeah. But give him enough of a reason. Yeah. Give a good enough story. I could see DS9 getting a kind of a Kenobi sort, or not a Kenobi, but Ahsoka. Ahsoka's going to be a one.
So, you went on something and you mentioned a side story like Kenobi and Ahsoka. I'm like, yeah, I want to watch O'Brien.
Right? I know. I would watch O'Brien. That'd be dope as fuck. Just a day in the life. But like, I mean, DS9 could very much get like, I mean, Ahsoka is supposed to be just a one season, or Andor is supposed to be just one, like a mini series, right? And so
until Ahsoka realizes, I don't know why I've stopped doing this for so long, and I wanted to keep doing.
Right.
Gets Picarded.
Exactly. You know, so I mean, I really do see that DS9 could get that treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, the sense that I've gotten recently is that Star Trek has pulled the gloves off. And they're like, you know what? We're not afraid of doing anything with what we've been given ahead of us. And I think it's pretty awesome. And so, I mean, do you see that being a thing?
I mean,
especially with what I told you.
Especially with what you told me. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because, I mean, when we talked about it, when that trailer dropped, I mean, it was like, go in like a kid and like, we're talking about this. And, you know, I'm like, time travel, like the sands of time going backwards. And you're like, why?
I'm like, time travel is a sticky situation.
It really is, because I really don't want to see them recast the next gen crew. But we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
But like, it's just that Bajoran tablet that just has me just going, what?
I watched that off of like a Twitter video. And I didn't have like it wasn't fully like up to like 1080p, so like that.
Dude, I watched it. They had it on Paramount Plus as like the leads, and I watched it just over and over, and I missed it every single time. It was just like I said the other day, where I'm like, wait, what's that?
Yeah,
what's going on here? So. Yeah, I get that feeling that like Star Trek is like not afraid anymore because they've been afraid of that era, the DS9 Next Gen Voyager era. They just not wanted to go back.
And also
they need to.
Yeah, yes, and that also brings up more hope of like, okay, like guys, if you bring in DS9 guys into Picard.
Oh God.
Like.
Oh.
Like,
give me Garrick.
That'll bring up interest in people watching DS9.
Yes. Well, okay.
Get 4K.
Oh, they really need to do that. Have you seen those 4K? Yes. Have you been seeing those like season previews that they've been doing?
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
So I'm so like, amazing. Yeah. Anything. Because I mean, yes, DS9, amazing.
Yeah.
Anything that gets us closer to like the possibility that Paramount, CBS are like, yeah, let's fund a 4K redo of DS9. Holy shit.
Yeah, what's sad about DS9 is it didn't get bought out by Paramount. So UPN, Paramount was one of the first like to create their own TV station, right? And their flagship show was Voyager. And Voyager was shot in HD. One of the first shows shot in HD back in the day. Like, it doesn't look that great nowadays.
No, it doesn't.
But it still looks better than DS9, you know? And so I really want to see, like, the next gen is fantastic. The original series remakes are both fantastic. They need to do it for DS9. Like, DS9 just does not get enough love. We will say this time and time again. It doesn't get enough love. And thankfully, there's enough people watching it these days that, like, if you haven't watched the documentary, What We Left Behind, you know, they talk about it in the beginning that right now DS9 is one of the most popular shows on Netflix because the story base, like the way the story is told, like it is modern storytelling from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. So
good.
I mean, to go through, we got Enterprise coming up here soon. And so like you'll get a little bit of that. You'll see like, as the writers from DS9 and Voyager come together, you'll start to see like credits. You're like, oh, I recognize that name. Brandon Braga. And okay, Manny Cotto. Okay, I know that name. And then you're going to be like, oh, Jeri Ryan. Okay. Yeah. Or not Jeri Ryan.
You did it last time you mentioned her too.
Yeah, Junie Lowry Johnson. There we go. You see like the writers starting to come in, and the thing with like Enterprise, and I keep saying it is the characters feel really good.
Yes.
Right from the very beginning. And it doesn't have that weird, like, I'm trying to flesh out my character sort of thing.
The weird warm-up.
Yeah, the warm-up happens in just trying to set the tone.
Yeah.
But you're going to love the characters. I knew you were going to love Tilly. Mm-hmm. I really knew you were going to love Tilly. I didn't know you were going to love Saru as much as you did.
I can't wait to find out who I like.
I think, because you don't know any of the characters.
Well, I mean, don't tell me. Don't tell me.
I think I know who you're going to like.
Okay.
And when we do our season 1 review,
okay,
I want to see if it's right. And if it's so, this character is just such a joy. Such a joy. Mm-hmm. Every time he's on screen, it is such a joy. So
I have one question.
Yeah.
One more question. I want to see if you can do I'd say lightning round, but I only have one question.
Okay.
But it'll be like a lightning.
Okay.
Is there a Star Trek version of the Star Wars Holiday Special?
No, there's not. The closest that Star Trek ever got to that was the animated series. Like, they just don't. No, there's not. Even though it could very much fit into the world because it's based on our timeline, right? So Christianity was very much a thing. Was there? No. Ooh. I want to say no right off the bat.
Okay, I'll broaden, not just talking, not like the subject matter, but the quality.
But the quality. Oh, are you not like
regardless on what this is?
Okay.
This is just bad.
Which episode do you want to talk about? No. The episode with Wesley and standing on the dirt or standing on the grass.
I mean, yeah.
No, in that context, not that I can think of. There was a lot of in the early 70s after Star Trek went off the air and it was starting to get really popular at that point. Like the Carol Burnett show, Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner were constantly on it, reprising their roles as Kirk and Spock doing ridiculous shit.
Okay.
That's about it. Yeah, Star Trek is really, you said it a little bit ago, and I meant to mention it and point it out at the time, but Star Trek has been extraordinarily careful with its canon.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to take itself too seriously, but it takes itself seriously. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't want, like Star Wars, I applaud it for having recognized that Star Wars is for kids. Mm-hmm. In the end, Star Wars is a kids movie. It's a kids show. Yeah. It's all about kids. Star Trek is not. Star Trek is for adults.
Yeah.
That kids happen to love, right?
Yeah.
Star Trek has been very cautious and careful of that. It doesn't want to look ridiculous because Star Trek has always been the redheaded stepchild, right? Like, it's Star Trek influenced George Lucas to create Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what a lot of people don't recognize. And that's one of the things we said in the very first episode of this podcast was there's a commonality here, right? There is a base, like Lucas, through watching old samurai movies and falling in love with Kirk and Spock, came up with Star Trek or Star Wars, right? There's that commonality there. There's that thing, that common thread that exists. And I applaud Star Wars for not taking itself too seriously in that sense.
Yeah.
Although I am not going to watch the Freemaker Adventures. I probably won't watch any of the Lego stuff. I can't, right? I'm just too old for it. And I never watched it in the beginning. It was never my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I haven't played, I've seen the Star Wars Lego games played, but I've never personally played them, even though they look fun as hell.
They are.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I keep hearing, and I'll probably wind up playing them eventually because they're all available for me to download right now, which is pretty dope. But Star Trek has always protected itself. It's always had to be the one that people make fun of it. Like, oh, you're a Star Trek fan? Oh, I like Star Wars. Like, fuck you. Like, shut up. Yeah. Like, you're a nerd too. Doesn't matter which side of the coin you sit on. But Star Trek has always taken itself seriously. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, not that I can think of. We talked a lot about Star Trek today.
Yeah, it was a Star Trek day.
It's Star Trek Day. And I think that's pretty awesome, especially like, with First Contact Day coming. So yeah, coming up, I mean, I think I'm good on the questions. You got anything?
I'm good.
Yeah, so next time we record, we'll be here in well, you guys don't really know how often we record, but it's generally every other week for the most part. Been a little for the most part, yeah. And we're looking to get a little bit more common as especially as I've moved closer here soon, and really excited about that. Some Let's Plays are possibly coming up and all that jazz, and so really excited about it. But here we have one more podcast that we're going to record before Bad Batch rolls out. We've gotten a little bit more info on Bad Batch, and I have to say that I am so excited.
Yeah.
I was curious to see how it was going to go. Like, was, Clone Force 99, were they going to be like just kind of rolling along with the Empire for a little while or not? Yeah. And apparently it's not. And I'm really curious about Omega, and I'm really curious about like
the story that's
I mean, if you got Boba being the Alpha and Omega being the Omega, they have to meet.
Mm-hmm.
They have to. Like, Boba has to be in there somehow.
Yeah.
And I guess real quick on the other side, I did hear a brief little blurb the other day that in the book of Boba Fett, Din Djarin is a huge part of the story.
Cool.
So, like, we're going to basically get Mandalorian season 2.5 before season 3 drops.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait.
Hell yeah.
Dude, we're on the precipice. Like, literally, Bad Batch and Lower Decks next month.
Yeah.
And we got probably 10, 12 episodes. We get 10 for sure of Lower Decks. Who knows what they're going to do for... I mean, they did 12 episodes for the last season of Clone Wars, and they tend to do. It was weird with Rebels. They did the 222 episode seasons and the 215 episode seasons, and so, kind of curious to see how that's going to go. But yeah, man, we got a lot coming up, and we have so much to talk about. And when we're doing it, I will say it's hot as fuck in here.
Yes.
Dude, it's not even summer yet.
Yeah.
So in my apartment, I have AC.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome because I'm sweating.
It's bad.
It's bad. And it's the typical Washington thing, by the way. We live in Washington, and as soon as
it only gets real hot for like a week and a half where it's unbearable, and then it goes back.
Yeah, and right now we're in the middle of unbearable in the middle of April, and it's
too soon. In the middle of too soon.
Yeah, in the middle of too soon, exactly. So we're dying, but it's been a great podcast. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So and then sitting in front of me is a really cool Funko. If you guys haven't seen the Ahsoka Funko with in her like jumpsuit, her overalls, her work suit or whatever it is.
It's dope.
It is dope. Like, it is probably the coolest Funko that I've seen. Like, I've seen her Jedi one, and it's okay, but I don't know. That's just a really, really, really cool Funko, and I think I might actually have to go get that tomorrow. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, for me, I've been Jordan. Really appreciate it. There's that whole look below, find those links to Facebook, Twitter, and SoundCloud. Leave some comments down below. Let us know what you guys think. If you have any questions, we would love to actually answer some of your guys' questions. Like, that'd be really fun. Encourage you to do so. So, unless, for me, I guess I finished off last time, right? So I think it's your time to finish off.
Live long and prosper.